thing I really like about ordering books online is that I kind of forget what I all ordered by the time it arrives to me. So it's always a bit of a surprise. I had a bit of a kerfuffle ordering online. Hello friends, and welcome to another video. Today I think is going to be a fun one. Well, today maybe for you when you're watching this multiple days for me, because I think I'm going to be filming this over a long period of time, but we're starting things off with a book haul, so I feel like that's always a good start to a video. I have been doing just one video a week, so they're kind of longer videos with a whole bunch of things crammed in, and I'm hoping in addition to a book haul, this is going to be a very spring feeling video. And even if it doesn't feel like spring outside, I'm hoping I can like force it upon the world outside, and if not, I'll just make it feel springy in here is my plan. So I did just get another book outlet order in. Once again, it's a large box, so that's what I'm going to be opening. And I thought I would show you. I am sending this postcard to my patron of the month. So over on Patreon, I have started my Windy Poplars tier. I randomly choose one person a month to be the patron of the month, and they get some benefits, including a postcard from me each month. She should receive this by the time this video goes live, so it shouldn't be spoilery. But I just thought I would show this. I have a collection of bookish postcards that I've been using to send to my patrons. Okay, now on to this book haul. This box is actually damaged. It looks like they set something heavy on top of here, so this isn't really gonna open very well. The thing I really like about ordering books online is that I kind of forget what I all ordered by the time it arrives to me. So it's always a bit of a surprise. Even though like I ordered books, I should know, right? There is an eclectic mix in here, like usual. And I'll just pick them out one at a time, show you what we have here. The first one is different than what I normally haul. This is huge. This is DK Smithsonian History. The past is you've never seen it before. So I got this for our homeschool / my kids. They love, well, we all love all the DK books. They're very interesting. So this one is all about history and has different timelines, and I have no idea. But I just thought this would be a really good, oh, the Reformation, cool, resource for us to have. I get the DK books from the library all the time because we really enjoy them, and so I decided to pick this one up when I saw it on Book Outlet. And when I ordered their books this time, they were buy 4 get the 5th free or something like that. So this one was not one of the free ones. Obviously the cheaper ones were the free ones, but this one was a way better deal than what I would have paid if I would have bought this full price. So I'm excited to add to this to our homeschool library. Okay, so that was very different than normal. Okay, where should we start here? I did get quite a few books in a series. I'm not sure if I know the order of the books. I think this is the right order. So the first book is My Lady Jane, and I just talked about this in my March reading wrap-up, and I talked about it kind of a little bit through a few books throughout March as well. This is a YA historical fiction fantasy. It starts out historical fiction fantasy, and then it goes into alternate history fantasy. So Lady Jane Grey was Queen of England for 9 days. She was named as Edward the Sixth successor. So Edward the Sixth was King Henry VIII's son. She was named his successor because he had turned England into a Protestant country, and he knew his sister Mary was very Catholic. She wouldn't keep it Protestant, but Lady Jane would. But then Lady Jane goes on to be executed by Mary, and Mary reigns for 5 years as Bloody Mary, where she burns a bunch of Catholics. This takes a bit of a spin on things. And this book is not Catholic and Protestant. There's people that can turn into animals. They have like this kind of magical ability, though they can't always control it. And then there's the people that are very much against people that are magical, and Mary is against magical people, and Edward is like for them. So that's how this book starts. And part 1 starts out in which we revise a bit of history, and then wherever part 2 is, it's like where we throw history out the window. So for part 1, we are like historical fiction with some fantasy, and then we go into alternate history as we go. And I'm gonna try to remember to read the first sentence, because I feel like the first sentences of books can be very fun. So this is the prologue. Sometimes I start with a prologue, sometimes I go straight to chapter 1. Maybe we'll do both. Prologue says, "You may think you know the story." So this is when our narrators are first talking, which is fun. And chapter 1 says, "The king, it turned out, was dying." I thoroughly enjoyed this. I would recommend this probably for grades 10 and up if you want to put it in your kids' hands. So because I enjoyed this, then I went on to see that Book Outlet had more books in the series, and all like paperbacks, which I prefer. I definitely prefer to have my series in the same like hardcover or paperback, but I do prefer paperback. So this was exciting. So I think book 2 is My Plain Jane. She sees dead people, looking for love in all the wrong places. Air, that is. Oh, what? I thought we were going to be following... Oh, I had no idea. Okay, so I thought we were going to continue following Lady Jane, but now we're following Jane Eyre. So then which Jane is this? Welcome to the Wild West. We're Calamity Jane. Oh, I had no idea. So we're doing that. This is why this series is called the Janies. I get it now. Okay, and then there's another series, a spin-off series, I'm assuming, that is, I don't know what they're calling it, like the Marys maybe it's called. So we've got My Contrary Mary, who is Mary Queen of Scots. This is just blowing my mind. I had no idea that they were different people. So I thought I would read, and this makes more sense now, I can read the first sentence from each of them. I thought maybe there'd be spoilers because I thought these were all the same Jane, but it does make sense then as to why Jane looks different in every cover. Oh, I am like so... I was loving this and I was excited to keep going, but now I'm way more excited about this. This is just blowing my mind. Love it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this is the next one. Yeah, more Great Janes. And then this one, there's also My Imaginary Mary. Oh, puts the fiction in science fiction. So I'm assuming that would be Mary Shelley, would be my guess. And I think that one is after this one. Okay, so My Plain Jane, who is Jane Eyre. Oh wow, blowing my mind. First chapter. Oh, their dedication in the last one was pretty funny, and this one I see here. And for England, again. We're really sorry for what we're about to do to your literature. In this one it was like, we're sorry for what we're going to do to your history. Prologue. You may think you know the story. Okay, same prologue. There was no possibility of taking a walk through the grounds of Lowood School without hearing the dreadful and yet utterly exciting news. Mr. Brocklehurst has been, gasp, murdered. It's been a while since I read Jane Eyre, so curious about that. And then My Calamity Jane. Hold on to your hats. Ain't afraid of the big bad wolf. Messy hair, don't care. I'm assuming the prologue will start the same. For the boat rockers, the rule breakers, and the troublemakers, no one ever became a legend by blending in. I like their dedications. Listen up, y'all. Okay, we're going very Western here. Part 1, Cincinnati, in which things get a little hairy. Okay, chapter 1 says, as usual, they caused a ruckus when they came to town. And then going on to My Contrary Mary. Long live the queen, not as quiet as a mouse. There's something about Mary. Now, Mary, Queen of Scots. So it starts out, you may think you know the story. All right, we know. We just had to get it out of the way. Chapter 1. Imagine, if you will, dear reader, the Louvre in Paris, France, in the days before it became a museum, an enormous marble palace stretching along the banks of the Seine. It's definitely got a different feel to it. Oh, and for France, we're sorry for what we're about to do with your history, but it was your turn. So Mary, Queen of Scots does show up briefly in My Lady Jane. So I know maybe a little bit about her if they're going to pull what they wrote from here into here. As far as like the fantasy elements, I'm already just like super thrilled about this. I had no idea that they would be different. Oh, and then I'm assuming there's slight spoilers or something here on the spines. I don't want to say anything about it, but that's cool. Yeah, I thought I was excited about these, but it turns out like I'm way more excited now. I'm gonna have to add all those books onto my TBR, except the one that I've already read. Okay, once again, some Agatha Christie, because I can't order from Book Outlet and not order Agatha Christie. I got towards zero. This is just one that I didn't have. And apparently this is one of Agatha Christie's personal favorites. They have a very short list on this edition of her favorites. And this is maybe, other than the Miss Marple complete short stories, which I haven't read all of them yet, I think this is the last one of Agatha Christie's favorites that I haven't read. So I don't know anything about this one. We don't have a detective. This is just kind of one of her standalones. What is the connection among a failed suicide attempt, a wrongful accusation of theft against a schoolgirl, and the romantic life of a famous tennis player? To the casual observer, apparently nothing. But when a house party gathers at Gull's Point, the seaside home of an elderly widow, earlier events come to a dramatic head. Let's see if we can find the first chapter, first sentence. There's a teeny bit of a map. Prologue. The group around the fireplace was nearly all composed of lawyers, or those who had an interest in the law. Now that is not an interesting sentence to me, because I do not like stories with lawyers. Like, I like mysteries and stuff, but I don't like it when lawyers are the main characters, because I do not care for legal jargon, or people arguing points when they're definitely wrong, or they even know that they're wrong. Here's chapter 1. The man in the hospital bed shifted his body slightly and stifled a groan. Agatha Christie does not usually have the best first sentences, I will say, but I still really like her books. So the first sentence isn't everything, but I do like it when a book has a really good first sentence. Okay, I think my only other Agatha Christie is this one, Agatha Christie Mallowin. In 1930, Agatha Christie and her husband, Sir Max Mallowin, went on their first archaeological dig together and began a lifelong affair with the mysteries of the Middle East. Come, tell me how you live. This is an archaeological memoir. Not buzzwords for me, but Agatha Christie definitely is. So I'm curious. I do want to read the book that I hauled previously first, though. That was her autobiography. I want to read that before this, even though that one has terrifying photos in it. Should I read the introduction? Forward. Chapter 1. In a few weeks' time, we are starting for Syria. Yeah, I don't know, her first sentences don't really do it for me, but generally her writing does as it continues. Let's keep going. Oh, this one I bought for my daughter. This is United We Spy. This by Ali Carter. This Carter. Did I say Carter? I don't know. Sometimes my mouth doesn't do the right things. This is, I think, the last book in the Gallagher Girls series. This is a mystery, well, it's an all-girls school that is supposed to be like, I think for rich girls, but really it's a spy school. So yeah, I read the first book and I thought, oh, this is a series I would have liked when I was younger, and my daughter is liking it, but she's gone on to read more Ali Carter and liked some of her other books better, but this is currently the only book we own in the series because that's all the Book Outlet had. Let's try the first sentence. The water was still as we walked beside it. That's pretty boring as a first sentence, but I think the series is decent is what she says. I don't know if that's actually the word she used, but she does enjoy it, just not as much as the All Fall Down series. And I put that one on my TBR for this month because she wants me to read it so bad. Okay, so then I went out of my element. So I think in February, I read a biblical fiction or historical fiction set in biblical times, and I thought I want to read more in that vein, try a different author. So I got The Centurion's Wife by Davis Bunn and Jeanette Oke, and now I've read things by both of them before, but never them together. So this is a sweeping saga of the dramatic events surrounding the birth of Christianity and a very personal story of Leah, compelled into a betrothal she never wanted, drawn by a faith she never expected. So when her family's wealth and power are lost forever, Leah is sent to Pontius Pilate in hopes that he might arrange a strategic marriage. But despite her betrothed's striking countenance and position, Leah deems life as a centurion's wife as a fate worse than death. So this is biblical fiction, but we're not following a particular biblical character. This is Acts of Faith is the series. This is book 1. Oh, once again, a nice map. Chapter 1. So this is AD 33, 6 days before Passover. So we are set at a very important part. I'm very curious as to how they're going to work in. Oh, at the bottom here it says, but when the death and missing body of an obscure rabbi compel Leah and Alvin to search for answers, what they discover changes everything. So it's like Pontius Pilate, we've got Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection obviously happening during this time. First sentence, usually Leah followed the path briskly from the main kitchen to the baths. So I'm very curious about this. Jeanette Oak, I read some in high school, went back recently and reread one, and it was hard to read. I found it very hard to read because of the like the slang, the way she wrote. I think it was kind of like a pioneer Western kind of story. And David Spun, I've read something very different by him, but I don't remember what. So curious to see how they write together. Okay, couple more books. 3 more. This one is Soldier Boy by Keely Hutton. Now this one I just read in April, and it is the true story of Ricky Richard Anywar. He was a child soldier in the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda during Joseph Kony's reign. I don't know the right word. And this, it is a brutal book. It is hard, but it is so good. It's very well written too. We flip back and forth between Ricky's story and this boy named Samuel. And right at the start of the book, Ricky's family, well, he gets beat up by the LRA. His family gets tied up, burned in their house. And then we go on to hear about his time in the Lord's Resistance Army. And this, oh man, if this was not a true story, I'd be really angry at the author for a few of the things that happened. And because it is a true story, my heart just breaks for him for the things that he had to go through, especially like this one thing that happens way later that I can't talk about. This book is so good, and I want my kids to read it eventually, but it's very brutal. Definitely like grade 10 plus in my opinion, because the Lord's Resistance Army, they did a lot of brutal things. I can't even think of the words, just horrific. But I so appreciate him being willing to share his story. So definitely recommend reading it, but just know you're in for a hard, heavy read, but very good. 2 more books. One, A Castaway in Cornwall by Julie Clausen. I have read 2 of her books now. Definitely drawn to her books because we have the same last name, so I feel like we've got a connection there. And also Cornwall, I just can always go for the English vibes. I just realized I didn't read the first sentence of this one. I was doing so good. Samuel lived by 3 rules. So the first chapter is through Samuel. Okay, A Castaway in Cornwall. This is set when? She always writes like historical fiction, often Victorian-ish. I don't know if there's a time on this. Prologue is 1813. The back says, set adrift on the tides of fate by the deaths of her parents and left wanting answers. Laura Calloway now lives with her uncle and his disapproving wife in North Cornwall. There she feels like a castaway, always viewed as an outsider, even as she yearns to belong. So I do have another one of her books on my shelf. Yeah, I have Shadows of Swanford Abbey, which I think is maybe a newer one by her. Chapter 1 here, the first word is Laura. So that doesn't give me much. I don't know. I feel like her books are a little bit more predictable than I like, as far as, well, I've only read a couple, but I'm assuming there's going to be a love interest that she ends up with. And while I do like happy endings, I don't like things to always be so predictable. But I could be wrong. Maybe I'll be wrong. And the last one. I'm very excited to get this one because I've owned the ebook for a while, and I have only heard really good things about this one, except maybe Holly, but usually we have different tastes anyway, so I think that's okay. And this is The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp. All the wild ways to die could never compare to how she really lived. This one is intriguing. So it says Aidan Kelly is talented, ambitious, and ready for a more serious assignment than the fluff pieces she's been getting as a cub reporter for the Kansas City Star. In her eagerness, she pushes too hard, earning herself the menial task of writing an obituary for an unremarkable woman who's just entered hospice care. But there's more to Clara Kipp than meets the eye. The spirited septuagenarian, I'm not sure if that's how you say it, may be dying, but she's not quite ready to cash it in yet. Never one to shy away from an assignment herself, she can see that God brought the young reporter into her life for a reason. I've just heard really good things about this book. I was very excited that they had it on there because I just suck at picking up ebooks. Clara Kipp had prayed repeatedly to die in San Paulo. Okay, interesting. That is all for the book haul, and then I will come back in a few days in my time and we will talk spring things. And hopefully the weather will agree with me. Welcome to an unplanned portion of this video because I forgot that I ordered a book from Thrift Books and then I acquired other books. So let's start with Thrift Books. I got one book and I know what it is because it was just one book. I'm trying to close out my collection of the 6 Tudor Queens. So I got Anna of Cleve, The Princess in the Portrait by Alison Weir, and once again, I don't remember the order here. It goes Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, and then Anne of Cleve, I think. So she's wife 4, and I got it wrong back when I hauled my other 3. I hauled 3, 5, and 6. So now I have 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've been paying attention on Thrift Books as to when they have these in hardcover, because the first one at least shows as $91 on Amazon in hardcover, and I actually prefer reading from softcover, but I already have 3, now 4 in hardcover, so I just want to finish the series all the same. So I'm keeping an eye on Thrift Books. If you've never ordered there before, I think I have a referral link that I'll leave linked below, because I think you get a free book or like $5 off your first order or something like that. I don't order from there a ton, but it's really good when you're looking for books that are hard to find. So this is part of the, well, 6 Tudor Queen series, so one of Henry VIII's wives. Excited to have that as part of my collection. And then this morning I had a specialist appointment. Every 6 months I go and see a specialist, and there's like, it has to be a silver lining to having a couple chronic illnesses, right? Like racking up the diseases in my age, I feel like there's got to be a bonus. So my doctor's office is very close to Value Village, so this is my bonus for having diseases. Yay! I don't normally like shopping at Value Village because their books are very expensive, but I pop in once every 6 months, sometimes buy stuff, sometimes I don't. Here's what I found today. It's a stack and it's very assorted. So I found Arthur by Stephen Lawhead, and I've never started this series yet. This is the Pendragon Cycle. This is book 3. So I now own 3 out of 4 books. I have Arthur, Merlin, and Pendragon, which might be books 2, 3, 4. And I just need book 1. Oh, there's 5 books in the series. So I have 2, 3, 4, and I need 1 and 5, according to this. So this is, I'm assuming medieval, and I'm assuming fantasy, but I don't really know. I've been collecting the series. I'll start it when I find book 1. This next one is a book that I've actually been hoping to find in a little free library. I maybe paid more for this than I should have, but Ready Player One is a book I started a long time ago and was enjoying, and it's just one I want. Oh, I'm gonna lose the whole stack. It's just one I really want to read, but I need the physical book because I started it on ebook a long time ago and I'm just so bad at that. So this is science fiction having to do with like a game that has clues and something hidden in it. I don't remember a whole lot, but I also don't think I got very far. Now I finally own it. Now I'm definitely going to read it. Then I found another Alison Weir book. I'm kind of confused by this cover. It's The Lady Elizabeth. So this is another Tudor queen. What point does it change? When does it go from Victoria, maybe? I'm so bad at this. So Elizabeth is Jane Seymour's daughter, and so this will be something that I get to after I read the 6 Tudor queens, and I hope she's a good writer because I am collecting her books. I'm very excited that I found this in the thrift store. I'm kind of confused because the spine here is blue and it's very green here, but it kind of like fades, but it doesn't look like, is that intentional, or it kind of looks unintentional, but it doesn't make any sense. I'm just getting distracted by minor details. I guess I'm not reading the first sentence of any of these because I know this video is going to be crazy long already. So the first books that I actually found that I was like, oh yes, I'm grabbing these, are great. These are The Adventures of Sherlock and The Memoirs of Sherlock in these really cool covers. First of all, The Adventures of Sherlock. What is the publication date on this? This is 1975 for this edition. And I love this cover. There are illustrations inside. Well, that just happens to be the exact one from the cover. Random illustrations. I love Sherlock and just wanted to collect it in a different edition. Plus this was only $2. And then The Memoirs of Sherlock, same edition. Love this. I'm assuming there's a couple different illustrations throughout. I would like to reread the stories in this. So these are a bunch of Sherlock short stories. And then there's one more series of The Return of Sherlock. I wonder if they also did that in this edition. Something to keep my eye out for, I guess. 2 more books. This one was for my daughter. See How They Run, an Embassy Row novel, and I just barely put the first book in this series on my list for April, my April TBR. It's a YA, that's all I really know, and she's really been loving the series, and so I found book 2, which was exciting. Even though this is hardcover and my book 1 is paperback, I can get over it. And then I found Victorian Mysteries. Mrs. Jeffries Takes a Second Look. So this includes 3 stories. Mrs. Jeffries Takes Stock, Mrs. Jeffries on the Ball, Mrs. Jeffries on the Trail. And I've been wanting to read Mrs. Jeffries for a while, and there's quite a few stories in this series. So this is like an older lady. Everyone's awed by Inspector Witherspoon's Scotland Yard successes, but they don't know about his secret weapon. Her name is Mrs. Jeffries, and she keeps house for the inspector and keeps him on his toes. No matter how messy the murder or how dirty the deed, her polished detection skills are up to the task, because as she knows all too well, a crime solver's work is never done. So this is actually books 4, 5, and 6. So I would need to read 1, 2, and 3 first, but at least it's not really far down the line. Like there's this entire list of Mrs. Jeffries books. So we're up at the beginning. So I only have to read 3 before I can get to these. And I love this cover. This is so great. It reminds me of my childhood, like those early 90s, late 80s covers where everyone's just shocked all the time. They've got that going on. Also, well, these books were all copyright 94 and 95. I wonder when this was put together. It definitely has those vibes. It's great. So we'll start the series eventually. And I love like the Victorian mystery. I like how they've put this together. It's great. So unexpectedly, I went and bought those books. And now we will hopefully start some springish adventures. The weather today did not tell me that it was spring at all. Alright, welcome to part 2 of this video where I'm going to continue with a bit more of a book haul because I got a couple books in the last few days. So I want to share that, and then I'm going to take you through my bookshelves. We're going to talk about some spring books that I want to read. I was really hoping it would I would look outside and it would look like spring, but I still just see snow. It was so cold this morning. Spring will come eventually. But since it's not, I'm going to pretend it is. And I'm going to get out all the spring books. I'm going to shuffle around my TBR cart. We're going to do that. But first, let's talk about the books. So I decided to finally order the book of the month. This came to Canada a couple months ago, and then none of the books sounded interesting. But I finally found one that sounded interesting. I had a bit of a kerfuffle ordering online because I ordered through Krista's link, which was supposed to be a $5 book, is what the deal was at the time. I don't know if that's always the deal or what. So I went, picked my book, $5, checkout, 100%, like was like $5, here's your order, checkout, and then I get my bill and it's like, thank you for buying this book for $10.49. And I'm like, but as a Canadian, I'm used to paying more. I get that. But that needs to be reflected on the website. You can't say you're checking out for $5 and then bill someone for $10.49. And it wasn't just like, this is US dollars and this is Canadian dollars. It wasn't like that. So I talked to customer service, and I have to say their customer service did really well. They ended up giving me a refund, and I just paid $5 for this book, which is like their deal for the first one. If I can have a referral link, I'll try to leave it below if you've never tried them out. It's an interesting concept. I haven't opened the box. I'm excited about this book because I feel like it might be springy. It was kind of a cover pie is what it was. We're gonna give it a try, open it up, and then I'll see going forward if I order more from a book of the month or not. I forgot to grab a scissor to open this though. For some reason I only have like fabric scissors or like little tiny thread scissors in here, but it will work. We will open this. I love these thread scissors though. They're like some kind of bird. They look cool. They're very tiny though. I don't want to like actually cut the book. That should work. Okay, I feel like this book could work for spring, summer, or fall based on the cover. There's like a book of the month something or other. I'll look at that later. But as someone that's waiting for the snow to go away and the grass to come, this book is something that I'm craving. It's got all sorts of bugs and birds and greenery. So this is Wayward by Amelia Hart. And I believe that this is the book that Krista got recently as well. And I do think it has some magic realism, which it's never really my favorite thing, but we've got 3 different time periods here. 2019, under the cover of darkness, Kate flees London for the ramshackle, wayward cottage inherited from a great aunt she barely remembers. With its tumbling ivy and overgrown garden, the cottage is worlds away from the abusive partner who tormented Kate. But she soon suspects that her great aunt had a secret, one that lurks in the bones of the cottage, hidden ever since the witch hunts of the 17th century. Then we go 1619, Altha? don't know if that's how you pronounce it, is awaiting trial for the murder of a local farmer who was stampeded to death by his herd. When she was a girl, her mother taught her their magic, a kind not rooted in spellcasting, but in a deep knowledge of the natural world. But unusual women have always been deemed dangerous, and as the evidence of witchcraft is laid out against Elsa, she knows it will take all her powers to maintain her freedom. And then we go 1942. As World War II rages, Violet is trapped in her family's grand, crumbling estate. Straitjacketed by societal convention, she longs for the robust education her brother receives, and for her mother, long deceased, who was rumored to have gone mad before her death. The only traces Violet has of her are a locket bearing the initial W and the word wayward scratched into the baseboard of her bedroom. And so I'm assuming it will weave these together. It sounds very feminist, and I'm like not anti-female, but I don't like it when books are like feminist in your face. And I'm often not great with magic realism, but we will see. I thought maybe I'd try to find the first sentence here. Prologue is Elsa in 1619. The first sentence says, 10 days they'd held me there. It's a very short prologue. So I don't know. I want to read this one soon. So this is definitely going to go on my spring TBR. So I can, I mean, obviously this book is not going to be like, this is how book of the month books are, because I've seen their past selection, and some months there's books that I'm excited about, some there's not. I went out on a limb here and got one that I'd never heard of, purely because it has a beautiful cover. I mean, I've heard of it, but like I've never read anything by this author. And the only thing I've heard is that other people are also going to be picking this book up. So we will see. And then in a very different vein, I got two other books. These ones are Christian nonfiction. I got Every Woman a Theologian by Felicia Masonheimer. It's know what you believe, live it confidently, and communicate it graciously. And I heard about this through a friend that was going to pick the book up. I started listening to her podcast, Verity, recently, and I've always been the kind of person that sometimes I just feel like, why do I need to know all this theology stuff? Because it just doesn't always, I don't know, I guess I've just struggled with it. But now, since listening to her podcast, I'm thinking about it a lot more, and I'm excited to read this book. I'm hoping it will be a good introduction, and I want to read this very soon too. This is going to go on my spring TBR. All three of these books that I'm talking about right now will be. So I think I'll talk more about it after I've read it a bit. I do not have like completely align with her own theology, I guess, based on what the little bit that I've found out. But I do appreciate that her podcast is very like, here's this, here's this. She doesn't usually say like this is right and this is wrong. She just kind of lays out the different theology and then lets you figure out which one you are, / read the Bible for yourself and figure out how you interpret it. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know the terminology to word this all very well, but hopefully I will know more after I read this book. It's actually, I was hoping it would be a little longer. I was hoping it would be like a very basic textbook kind of thing, but it's only, oh, it's under 200 pages. So it's actually quite short. And then I got a pre-order this book's only coming out April 18th, and I got it like the second last week in March. That never happens. Our bookstore is supposed to give out books that early. I got Tea Time Discipleship by Sally Clarkson, sharing faith one cup at a time. And I do know that I did not read the first sentence of Every Woman a Theologian. I feel like it doesn't really make sense to read the first sentence of nonfiction books. So I've sung Sally Clarkson's praises on here before. This is a beautiful coffee table book. I haven't even opened it. I just put it on my shelf and was like, wanted to share it here. So this is my first look through, but I do know that they hired a photographer to go through Sally Clarkson's house and take some photos. So these are like actually her house. And this is all about discipling people over tea. And I feel like this is something, especially since COVID, I've been really slacking on, and something that I need some guidance with and just need to be re-inspired that way. So another one for the spring. So these three are my new books, and they're all going to be on my spring TBR. And now I'm going to go through my TBR shelf and pick out a few more books that I think would work really well for the spring. In true Chantel fashion, I have picked way too many books because I've already created my April TBR, which would be spring, and then I have to create my May TBR, which I will try to pull books from here, but these are kind of books I would like to read in between, because I guess we just really have April and May, and then June is already summer. So we're gonna go in no particular order. I definitely pulled out a lot of classics, and historical fiction were kind of like the main things that I was drawn to. I was hoping for more like springish looking covers, and there wasn't a lot for that, but here's what I found. A couple of them I just hauled. So The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp. This is one that I've heard such good things about, and I thought because the cover has that, you know, it's got plants and bugs, so I thought that kind of screams spring if you're not looking out my window. So we'll add this one. I won't say much since I just talked about that. And then also The Centurion's Wife, because this one is really set at Easter time. It seems like maybe I should quickly read this in April as well. So those two I just hauled. And this is a series I started a long time ago that I want to continue, the Maisie Dobbs series. So this one is Pardonable Lies. This is a historical mystery series. This is book 3. I find it to be a really good historical mystery series. The only thing is, I think maybe it only starts in the second book. I don't remember it in the first as much. Maisie Dobbs has a little bit of a, I can't even think of how to describe it, but sometimes when she goes into a room where someone was murdered or a mystery happened, she kind of like feels something, but it never really goes beyond that so far. It's just like, so it's a minor part of the story that I wish wasn't there, but it's so minor I can overlook it. So I don't know where she's going to be going here. Let's see what the first sentence says here, because a mystery book, in my opinion, should have a good first sentence. The young policewoman stood in the corner of the room. Not very good, but that's okay. Doesn't mean the book won't be good. Okay, now let's do some classics here. Daddy Longlegs, I don't really know what this one is about, and I don't even remember when it was written. First published in 1912. The cover looked very springy, and I do know that this is mostly or all written in letters from, let me just read this. A trustee of the John Grier Orphanage has offered to send Judy Abbott to college. The only requirements are that she must write to him every month and that she can never know who he is. Judy's life at college is a whirlwind of friends, classes, parties, and growing friendship with the handsome Jervis Pendleton. With so much happening in her life, Judy can scarcely stop writing letters to her mysterious benefactor she calls Daddy Longlegs, or wondering who on earth he could possibly be. So, this is a classic that I'd like to get to, and I think it would be a quick read, and it's got like springy vibes. Now, I have quite a few James Herriot books, and it's about time I read some of them. I was debating between animal stories or cat stories, but since we have a cat, I thought I would start with cat stories, and I don't really know a whole lot about this. There's a number of short stories in this already short book that have to do with cats, and lots of cat illustrations. Socialite, oh my goodness, Socialite cat. Wow. Some cool illustrations. This is going to be a short read. Alfred, the sweet shop cat. That is cute. Ollie and Ginny, the greatest triumph. Because it is only like 160 pages, plus there's illustrations, this will be a quick read. There's an introduction, and then let's read the first sentence of the first short story. My throat was killing me. And once again, forgot to read the first sentence of this one. Blue Wednesday. The first Wednesday in every month was a perfectly awful day, a day to be awaited with dread, endured with courage, and forgotten with haste. I do like the writing in that. That's cool. What is a spring TBR without some L.M. Montgomery? I have Pat of Silverbush. This one is book 1 in a duology, and I don't really know anything, but I feel like L.M. Montgomery, her books are generally span at least a year, and so they're really good to read at any time of year, but she writes nature so well that I feel like spring is a really good time to read her books. So is autumn. Oh, this one has lots of chapters, so they must be short. It says like 39 chapters. Chapter 1 introduces Pat. Oh, and I think I'll soon have to be doing some rooting in the parsley bed, said Judy Plum, as she began to cut Winnie's red crepe dress into strips suitable for hooking. That's a very different kind of sentence. Okay. It's been a very long time since I read a Joanna Davidson Politano book, so the next one, because I'm trying to go in publication order, the next one I have is Finding Lady Enderley, and because I read the first book that I read by her last April, this feels like the perfect time to read another one. I've loved her books. They are set in Victorian times, and I don't know anything about this. Raina is a rag woman in London's East End when a handsome stranger appears in a dank alley, offering her a glittering smile and a chance for adventure. Rothburn, Abbey, has a unique position for her, one that will take her away from her hard scrabble life and give her a chance to be a lady. Though Raina has traded squalor for silk and satin, something about the Abbey is deeply unsettling. As she wrestles with her true identity, the ruin, decay, and secrets she finds at the heart of the old mansion tear at her confidence and threaten to reveal her family for who she really is. Only one man stands between her and the danger that lurks within, and only if he decides to keep her biggest secret hidden. So, I don't know. Don't know much about it other than that. The first sentence is, "For one blessed moment, I was beautiful." This is set in London's East End in 1871. I definitely am looking forward to reading another one of her books. And then, because the Titanic anniversary is at the beginning of April, I want to read another Titanic book. This is Luck of the Titanic by Stacey Lee. This is a YA book that is very similar to, like, the general plot. It seems very similar to Jennifer A. Nielsen's Iceberg book, which is a middle grade book about the Titanic that I just read in March. My March reading wrap up will be coming next week. But this one we follow a girl who is Chinese and she sneaks aboard the Titanic and she wants to join the circus, I think. So that's all I know about it. There's a list of characters aboard the Titanic. That's cool. Oh, and illustrations of the inside. Nice. And a poem. And it starts out, April 10th, 1912. When my twin, Jamie, left, he vowed it wouldn't be forever. I like that for a first sentence. So hoping this one's a really good one. This is a book that I'm so embarrassed I still haven't read. Still on my list, At Home in Midford. I started this in the fall. I am on page 10, so I'm gonna go back and start it all over again. I think we're set in Midford, and I can't remember the year that we're set, but our main character is a father. I don't know if does that make him a priest? I don't know what kind of church it's part of, but I've heard really good things about this series and I just keep putting it off. So I want to start it. Let's see, what was the first sentence? He left the coffee-scented warmth of the Main Street grill and stood for a moment under the green awning. So very descriptive. Another classic that is on my list of 50 classics I want to read before I die is Emily of Deep Valley. And the flowers on this cover really screamed spring to me, so I thought this should go on this list. I don't know anything about it. It's set in Deep Valley, Minnesota. That's already more than I knew. Let's read the first sentence. The text is quite large and there are illustrations as well. It's the last day of high school ever, Annette said. I really don't know anything about this. So this next book actually includes a couple other books, but because I want to read Twice Sold Tales by Shatona Havig, but I do know that because I read the novellas and because of what some people have told me, I should / want to read two books before this. Parnassus on Wheels and the second book in that series, The Haunted Bookshop. Those I think are both classics, so I want to read those, and then I want to read Twice Sold Tales. And so I talked about this series a bit in my Books About Books, because in the novellas we followed a man who took businesses he saved them from bankruptcy, and he happened to help two different bookstores in those books. And now we're on to Twice Sold Tales, and I'm assuming this is a bookstore, and I'm assuming that guy's gonna come, and that's really all I want to know going in. But there are going to be a bunch of literary references, and I do know those two books I think come into play, so I want to read those ones for sure. And then because I'm kind of in the mood for all the classics, I thought I'd get a short one off of my list checked off The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I have only read one random chapter in here because when I was interning to be a teacher, I had to help a high school kid one day. And so it made no sense because it was just like a random chapter. So I don't really know anything about it except there's characters named Ponyboy and Soda Pop. And this tells us nothing except who is in the movie. So that's not useful. Oh, I didn't read the first sentence of the last few again because I always want to do it, but I'm so bad at it. Let's read the first one of this. When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. Okay, that was that one. First sentence of this one. Today's t-shirt said it all. But look, I want to know what the t-shirt said, so wait a second. Although Harper Brevig would really have preferred one that said fictional characters because people are overrated, she hadn't found one yet. Oh, it says at the top, I'm so bad at reading. Under chapter 1 it says books because reality is overrated. Now today's t-shirt said it all. That makes more sense. Books because reality is overrated. She would like one that said fictional characters because people are overrated. That's funny. I like that. Next one is Agatha Christie's Evil Under the Sun. This is a Poirot mystery, and I keep meaning to read them in order, but this is one that I've heard is a whodunit that I could sit down and solve, and I've been missing doing like pulling out my big whiteboard and trying to solve an Agatha Christie mystery. So this is my next one I'm going to do. I'm not 100% sure when I'm going to try to solve it, but hopefully this spring. So we've got Poirot. I don't really want to read the back. Let's just read the first sentence. When Captain Roger Ingemerring, I have no idea, built himself a house in the year 1782 on the island of Leathercombe Bay, it was thought the height of eccentricity on his part. Wow. Just stumbled all the way through that. Okay. Two more. Amanda Dykes' All the Lost Places. So she writes historical fiction, dual timeline. This one were 1807 and 1904. And I do like it when the dual timeline, they're both historical. I always think that's kind of cool. This is her newest one. I still have at least one of her old ones to read. I think I have one, maybe two of her old ones to read. But I got approved for this on NetGalley forever ago. And then I bought this in a vlog a while ago as well. So I thought I should read this one first. Let's see here. So 1807, when a baby is discovered floating in a basket along the quiet canals of Venice. Oh yeah, we're in Venice. And then we're in 1904. So we're like 100 years later. I don't really want to know. But let's see here. Prologue. Once upon the dawn of time, there was water. She is a really good writer. I'm excited about that. And then I'm going to want to travel to Venice afterwards. Field trip. And the last one is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. Ever since I got this from a used bookstore, I've just been wanting to read it. So it is, I think, a like Wonderland retelling or esque. It's set in Wonderland. Not really sure how that's going to come into play. I hope it doesn't read like Alice in Wonderland because that's not my favorite. The first sentence is, 3 luscious lemon tarts glistened up at Catherine. That's right. It's all about food because this girl is, she may be one of the most desirable girls in Wonderland and a favorite of the unmarried king, but her interests lie elsewhere. A talented baker, she wants to open a shop and create delectable pastries, but for her mother, such a goal is unthinkable for a woman who could be a queen. So there you have it. That is my spring TBR. Not all of them are very springish, but they're books that I just would like to get to this spring if I could. And I'm gonna move some things around on my cart and try to fit them on there. Thanks for hanging out with me through this video. I appreciate you guys being here, and if you guys want more content from me, especially these days that I'm only doing one video a week here, I would love for you to come join my Patreon because they get exclusive videos each month and you get access to all the old ones, and I just appreciate everyone's support there. It's a great way to support my channel and to support my family.